practice that we call agriculture of tillage that involves permanent, houses and towns and cities seems to have risen up, majorly around what they say about 10,000 years ago, plus or minus. You talk about the Fertile Crescent, the Tigris and Euphrates River Valley. We talk about the Nile River Valley, right? The Egyptians. Talk about the Indus and the Ganges River valleys, where the Indians were hanging out. You got the Yellow River Valley, where the Chinese were. These ancient civilizations that have been present, they're agricultural civilizations, not hunter-gatherer, quote-unquote, permaculture civilizations, but agricultural civilizations that maintain the same spot for hundreds or thousands of years, all seem to have been doing it in river valleys. They weren't doing agriculture on flat land, dry land for hundreds and thousands of years. Those areas are now called desert. Right? Those areas where agriculture was practiced in that manner have been worn out. That's why all the farmers left New England. Right? New England was cleared, as I understand it, about 150 years ago. It was 2 or 4% wooded, almost all clear. And farmers were unable to grow sheep because the soil was so weak. They started out growing crops that started out with massive trees and amazing wildlife and proceeded to wear the land out. Took a couple hundred years, wore the land out, and they all moved out west where they hadn't worn the ground out yet. And now we used to have 40 feet of topsoil in Illinois, and we're down to the subsoil. But agriculture, historically, what we call agriculture, is only able to be maintained in river valleys for hundreds of years in a row. And from my perspective, that's because what happens in river valleys on an annual basis is that those things which have been taken out in the crop are being put back in with the flood. When the river floods and dumps that silt layer on the field, that is remineralizing naturally what is being demineralized through the process of harvesting out tens of thousands of pounds of crops per acre per year. Right? You take out 10, 20, 30,000 pounds of crop per acre per year, and a lot of that's air and water, but a lot of it's also minerals. And that plant is bioaccumulating in its seeds the things you harvest, those nutrients which are most valuable, which in many cases are most limited. And so it doesn't take long to wear out soil. Does that basically make sense to people? This is my framework, so take it or leave it. But this is a piece of the puzzle that was not shared in my background in the organic community. And I don't think it's much part of the biodynamic or permaculture community either. We don't talk about underlying mineral levels in the soil and the critical roles in biochemistry, et cetera. So the foundational point here is that crushed up rock dust applied to the soil is sufficient to maintain this intensive form of agriculture, which involves tillage and monocultures and things like that. Not that's optimal, but that if we are not to remineralize the soil, we should expect the soil to wear out. We should expect our crops to get sicker and weaker year on, year on. So I think the long-term vision here is that between crushed up rock and seawater, which has 90 different elements in it, and small amounts of salt are a valuable thing, even when too much is not. We have the planet made out of seawater and rock. Right? We have available everywhere in vast quantities those raw materials necessary for revitalizing the land. Those things which we would necessarily need to bring back into land that's been worn out if we want to rapidly improve it are available free all over the place if we know where to look.